Right. All right, guys. There's so many. All right. Welcome everyone. Oh, there's some more coming in. Okay. Right. All right, guys. There's so many. All right. Welcome everyone. Okay. Welcome everyone. Thank you, community and candidates, for joining us. This is a really great opportunity for our candidates and the community to get to know each other and learn more about important issues. So thank you for coming. Also, special thank you to our community volunteers for coordinating the event and to Camera Corner for the equipment to allow the live stream. And before we get started, just a quick overview of how we're going to run today's question session. Each candidate's going to start out having 2 minutes to just give us an introduction. Then we'll read through the questions as they're given to us. We do have some that are presented before. If you have some today, please bring them up and I'll read them. We'll be reading the questions to each candidate, allowing them each a chance to answer, and they'll have a minute to answer. If they have follow-up to the questions, they can answer on their pages. There'll be time after the session is done to be able to kind of just follow up with them. And then any questions that we don't get to, again, they'll have those questions so that they can then answer those questions or, again, elaborate on something that maybe that 1 minute wasn't quite enough. So we're going to get started. Corey. Oh, I'm sorry. At 6 o'clock, we're going to try and wrap up. And then for the question session, so that's that meet and greet time, 6:45, we're going to try and get everybody moving out the door so we can get the hall cleaned up and make sure that they let us come back again. So, and then reminders to the candidates, please be respectful. Address the questions to the community, not to each other. All right? Okay. Corey, can we start with your introduction?
Corey Julick, I work at Great Bay Packaging as a buyer, stockroom associate. I live in Hobart. I graduated in 2001. Currently have 2 children that go to Illinois. What's that?
Louder. Louder.
I started working.
Sure.
My name's Corey Julick. I work at Green Bay Packaging as a stockroom clerk and buyer for the facility. I live in Hobart. I graduated in 2001 from Pulaski. I have 2 children that attend Illinois Elementary. For the last 4 years, I've been active at every board meeting the district has held. I've been involved in listening sessions when the referendum was going through. The district last year, I worked through Envision Our Future for pillar work for the school district. I was involved with the Community Involvement Committee that took place last April. Last year, I did run for the board seats for the village of Hobart.
All right. Jenny?
All right. I am Jenny Rubicki. I am a mom of 2 girls in the district. I've got a 4th grader at Glenbrook and I have a junior at the high school. I have lived and worked in Pulaski for the last 20 plus years and love this community. My last role in the community was the director of the Chamber of Commerce here. And throughout my tenure at the chamber, was asked multiple times if I'd be interested in being part of the school board. And I always saw it as a conflict of interest. You know, my focus was on the businesses in town, and while I participate in the schools and in the community, and I made time to be at the board meetings, and when I couldn't, I would live stream them and submit my feedback. Now is the time, and the seat came open, and I would love to be your voice.
Steve?
All right, Steve Legal. I'm a resident of Little Swamico or Sobieski. I am a director of IT or information technology for the local utility. WEC Energy Group, which you would know it as Wisconsin Public Service. So of about 300 people, $100 million operating budget, $100 million capital budget on an annual basis. I hold a master's degree in business and a doctorate in business. Actively involved in family services in Northeast Wisconsin. I currently serve on their board of directors. I also serve on the board of directors for another nonprofit called Utilities Technology Council, which is a nationwide organization focused specifically on operating principles and governance of that organization. Um, Again, interested in running for this position to bring a lot of my experience and care for the community. I have 3 children in the community as well that attend school, 2 in the high school and 1 formerly at Sunnyside, not any longer. But again, here to listen to the community. Again, I appreciate everybody showing up and for all the questions that were submitted.
All right. Let's start out with the first question. Steve, I'm going to address it to you first. If you have spent any time in schools, you have seen that teacher and staff morale is at an all-time low, with many citing district admin as the cause. How do you intend to help change the morale and mend bridges?
Sure. So, I mean, anytime morale is in question, whether it be students, teachers, employees, getting to the root of it is critical. I think as a board member, it's important to visit the schools. Not only because it's easy to say, "Hey, contact me if you have a problem," but I think it's also important to reach out. Parents, again, having kids in the school district, parents, teachers, administrative staff, to really understand what's going on before taking action, and then bringing any of the feedback back to the board. Again, it's a collective unit. And in order for there to be success, really the staff and the board have to work together. There's no other option. So,
All right. Jenny, you want me to reread the question?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I would say that it has not been my experience that overall morale is low. Um, there's definitely disgruntled people in every position in every industry. However, my experience with the school district is very high. In Wisconsin, we have a average of a 10% loss of teachers in all districts. Pulaski is significantly lower than that. And that tells me that teachers are happy overall. And those teachers that I've individually reached out to and spoken with have said similar things. So obviously there is problems and concerns, and everyone's opinion counts. And I would say it's similar where we need to have those conversations and those talks, and we need to make sure that we're coming together as a consensus, and it's not the minority speaking for the majority.
Um, I've been in schools firsthand. I had lunch dates with my children many times. Brought pizzas for the staff just to show appreciation. And the feedback I get from teachers are they are struggling. There's always a morale issue in the schools. It's important for as a board member to be in the schools, get the firsthand information of the struggles. Yeah. The teachers might not feel comfortable going to administration, but as a board member, you could bridge the gap to bring that information to board meetings for further discussion.
Right. Okay, Jenny, I'm going to direct the question to you first this time. Okay, what are your thoughts on the level of transparency associated with school finances?
I think that transparency is a big buzzword. It's an interesting word to me just because when we talk about transparency, we as parents and community members have access to everything that's out there. You know, the budget, all the numbers are published. We have the opportunity to be at those board meetings to ask questions, to address things that we have concerns about. Um, so I think that, you know, looking at other districts, I think that we're doing good things. We're moving in the right direction. But I do believe that as parents, you know, and community members and taxpayers, especially now, with what we all just experienced, that it's going to continue to be something that's important and something that we can always continuously improve on.
Right. Corey?
I've attended the business meetings annually where they go over the budget. For a community member, it's at a very high level of information that they share. It's the same people that present the budget every year, the same spokesperson at these meetings. For the community, a little more high level or lower level look at things to give you more information. So it's easier for the average community member to understand where the money's being spent and where it's coming from.
Steve?
Sure. I think transparency is key. I know the audit reports are out there that anybody can go find and take a look at, but I don't think the level of detail in there is easily consumable for the average person. So I think there needs to be more transparency on the finances, specifically around referendums, how the school's spending the money on field trips and other trips. Because I think there are a lot of concerned citizens and parents that want to make sure that every children has the same opportunity. And if there isn't funding out there, how do we get the funding to support those things? I don't think as a parent I should have to go search it out. So I think as a board there has to be an opportunity to educate the community better on the finances and even the operating expenses throughout the district. So I think there's definitely opportunity.
Okay. All right, Corey, this one's going to come to you first. At a cost of nearly 200,000 so far, do you feel academic parent teacher teams is an effective way to doing parent teacher conferences? Please explain your stance.
At Illinois, so I've experienced it firsthand. Um, the first year I was in there, it was more of games that parents played. As the years went on, the amount of people coming to them has dwindled. There used to be two separate classrooms for each grade level. Now it's one. There's very few parents that show up. Talking to teachers, they miss that one-on-one interaction. I just had teacher conferences last week with my kids' teachers, and it's the first time we saw them since the school started, and they miss that one-on-one interaction. For the amount of money that's being spent, I don't see the benefit. The traditional teacher conferences is more of a connection with the parents and the student teacher combo, because my son sat with the teacher and we could work on things that he needs to work on at home. So I don't see the benefit in the program.
All right. Go back to Steve.
Yeah, can I just ask a question real quick? I know what APTT is, but maybe some of the folks online or in the audience don't. So is there anybody that's qualified to provide a good explanation or high level explanation as to what APTT is?
Okay, Jackie. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, my name's I work for Pulaski School District. Academic Parent Teacher Team Conference is an alternative approach to the traditional conference setting. So basically, the ideal is it's aimed to get parent involvement in the children's education in terms of goal setting and focusing on a specific goal for that period of time between one academic parent teacher conference to the next. And so the ideal is that you look at the goals, you look at the data, and the parents are part of that. And what games Corey was referring to were games that help you to reinforce your child's growth at home to play in between that time period to help your child meet that goal. That makes sense.
Great, thank you. So to answer the question, just like any other thing that we do within the school districts, whether it be standard conferences, group conferences, APTT, I think if there's a recommendation that we look at that, is it effective? That needs to be on the table. Again, the parents and teachers that either are for or against it, we need to gather the information as to why and make an informed decision on that. But in the end, I think consistency is important, right? So if two schools are piloting this program right now, what does it look like to move it forward? And how do we measure success, right? Before we make a decision to roll it out. So again, I think collecting data, having one-on-one conversations with people, and then making a decision is the right thing to do.
Yeah. Jenny?
And for me, I'm a very data-driven person, and I have not got to experience it. I'm at Glenbrook, not at Illinois. And so for me, I would say, what is the participation level in the APPT versus the standard parent-teacher conference? Because we all know that everybody doesn't attend those either. And the three of us had the opportunity. We were invited to meet with the superintendent as candidates, and it was a topic of conversation that I brought up with her because I had heard concerns with it. And, you know, budgetarily, it has been a concern. However, within the next year, we're fully funded. So we've had to bring in trainers that we are paying for, and now we have somebody in the district that's certified to be able to do that training. So it's not an additional cost anymore. So having had invested $200,000 in it, I'd love to be able to see it work and if it's statistically valid for us. And get the feedback from the parents that are participating and finding out what they like, and if there's, a room for improvement, we can do that.
Okay. All right. The next question, I believe, goes back to Steve. Okay. What are your thoughts on the referendum being voted on with a 70 million price tag, while district documents show a taxpayer impact that exceeds 100 million?
Well, I think there's many components of the referendum that are valuable. I think this goes back to transparency, though. So if there was a known factor out there that $70 million was indeed going to inflate to $107 million because of loans and bonds, I believe that information should have been disclosed with to the taxpayers in advance, prior to voting. Now, I don't know all the financial mechanics behind it as to when that was determined, but I do know in the audit report it does show that information. Um, so again, I think aspects of the referendum could be could be supported, but I just think transparency. So if that number indeed is $170 million and it's known, then that information should be readily available and provided to the taxpayers, regardless whether they support it or not.
Right. Jenny?
And for me, as a community, we voted on that referendum, and now we have it. There's no going back, unfortunately. Um, and I think that the next most important part is that we have a fiscally responsible board that can help reduce some of those costs potentially and make sure that those dollars are being spent in the best interest of our kids and our teachers and our community.
Corey?
Um, yeah, if that's truly what this referendum is going to cost, I think that the district should come forward with that information so the community is aware of the total cost. If one looks back at when the high school was built, that referendum was passed also without any money set aside to furnish the school, which they had to come back to the taxpayers for. So if this is truly going to cost $100 million to taxpayers, there should have been information, or information should come out so the parents and community are aware. But at the same time, we should make any effort we can to control costs anywhere we can in this project.
All right, Jenny? In recent years, seasoned and well-respected teachers have walked out the doors of Pulaski Community School District. What do you feel would retain teachers, specifically teachers with experience?
Working in many different industries throughout my tenure, right now, workforce in general is very difficult to retain in any industry. And I think that when things changed with when Governor Walker was and teachers' benefits for staying longer didn't necessarily mean that they could be here. It's a tough conversation to have, and we're all at will workers as well as our teachers. I think that there's some non-monetary benefits, and we talked about some teachers not feeling appreciated. I think that there's some opportunity to get to the root cause and find out what's happening with those people and do what we can to retain them. And if they want to move on to another district. I saw a statistic recently where there's a very large percentage of the teachers that are leaving that are going into non-teaching roles, and that's just part of the baby boomers are retiring and we're not having as many kids as we used to. So there's not as many people working in the workforce. So, if you're a good, smart person, another industry may be recruiting you.
Corey?
Can you read the question again, please?
Yes. In recent years, seasoned and well-respected teachers have walked out the door of Pulaski Community School District. What do you feel would retain teachers, specifically teachers with experience?
I think teachers need to feel valued, and allow their input to be given. As I've talked to teachers in my own children's schools, they have nobody to go to with their concerns. And I sat down with my kids' teachers last year, and the teacher broke down crying, saying, I'm glad you realize I'm not the problem, but I don't have anywhere to go. So I think teachers need to feel valued, and they need to be able to give their input and something needs to be done with that. For our teachers, they're working every day. I get email, seesaw messages at 8 o'clock at night from our teachers. They're in it for the long haul and dedicated, and they care deeply about our students and our community. And this is the last thing they want to do is leave. We need to do everything we can to retain them and listen to their concerns so we can address them.
Steve?
Well, I think what we need to do is if we have a list of the teachers that have left the district, where are they leaving from? Are there any common factors? Is there a common denominator that we need to look at? Is it all Sunnyside? Is it all Glenbrook? Is it all the high school? Because being in business and having quite a few people report up to me, there's usually a systemic problem somewhere, but we need to figure out what it is. It could be monetarily, it could be benefits, it could be this, it could be that, but having some firsthand conversations with teachers and having children in the school, I think accountability in the school, it would help keep teachers there. I'm talking student accountability as well as staff accountability. Everybody wants to be held accountable to a certain level. Parental involvement, right? And I agree. There needs to be a place for teachers to go, right? There is a chain of command that they can report things to, but then what? So if their problems aren't being answered at whatever level, the superintendent level, then where do they go? So how can the board support the teachers? And again, whether we have good things going on or bad things going on, we really need to understand why the teachers are leaving.
Okay. All right. Corey, over the last couple of months, we have had a lot. I'm sorry, we have heard a lot regarding Sunnyside, such as a 20+ point drop in test scores, along with parent and staff not feeling supported. What would you do as a board member to turn this around?
As a board member, it'd be important to be in the schools, talk to the principal, get some feedback from the teachers themselves of the struggles and what's truly going on. Uh, Maybe reach out to the parents whose children currently go to that school to get some information. It's important to have the information up front, kind of a backstory of what's going on before you can move forward. I think things like that should be brought to the board where the board can discuss these on the agenda at a meeting. So there could be a focus put on that school as to corrective action.
Steve?
Yeah. I honestly think having something like this with parents, teachers, students to really understand what's going on at Sunnyside, looking at the individual test scores, I glanced at what they are, and yes, I understand they're lower, but I just wanted to say this, test scores don't tell the true story about everything, right? So teachers know what's going on. Are we listening to our teachers? Parents know what's going on. They're the ones trying to help their children at home at night. Are we listening to our parents? So again, getting people in a room and talking through things can help us better understand what's going on, and then the board can better act in conjunction with the administrative staff on trying to solve the problem at Sunnyside. I don't think there's one problem. I think there's multiple problems.
Jenny?
I'm coming in unfamiliar with the problems at Sunnyside. So just from from a parent perspective, being able to be educated on, what things have happened there, would be important to me. Obviously, if these things are blatantly obvious, the district administration better have been doing some things, and what things have been put in place and what are they doing to address it. And again, getting out there, talking to the teachers, talking to the parents, and finding out what they feel is going on, and finding the difference and the barriers there.
Great. Steve, we're back to you.
Seems like just yesterday.
Okay. Currently, we are aware that the board president, Heidi Melser, creates all meeting agendas with our superintendent without any input from the rest of the board. Despite some members of board and community asking for items to be added, do you feel this is appropriate? Why or why not?
If that is taking place, I believe it's inappropriate. All board members have equal power. I serve on two other boards and we all have equal power. The president of the board is responsible for conducting the meeting, not necessarily organizing the meeting. So I believe that all board members and community members should be given an opportunity to add something to the agenda. Again, and if time doesn't allow, provide an explanation and a plan to address it instead of just not allowing it. But again, this goes back to transparency.
All right. Jenny?
I too, not aware that's happening. But if it is, it's inappropriate. But understanding the things that, I've served on many boards, and um, this is obviously a elected board, not an appointed board. So there's a difference there. But understanding the process, and if there's things that, someone's asking to be put on the agenda that can't be, understanding that and helping everybody understand why it can't be.
Yeah, I feel any board member, board members are out in their district talking to people that are having the issues. Any concerns that they are told, they're a louder voice than, our court president is Hobart. So if there's issues going on the Sunnyside, the person that in the board that represents that zone should be able to bring information to have items put on the agenda that can be discussed as a board. It shouldn't be one person deciding with administration what's on the agenda. It should be everybody has an equal opportunity.
Jenny. Okay, great schools has wait, great schools. Great schools has the majority of our district schools rated at 6 to 8 range. Yet when you look at Sunnyside, they are rated a 4 and student development is rated a 2. How would you address this as a board member?
I think this would be very similar to the problems that are being addressed at Sunnyside, in being an outsider to that. Obviously, if test scores are low, I would assume that great schools, I'm not familiar with them, are similar to the test scores. And it would be the same approach, as just trying to get an understanding from both sides what things are happening there and how we make improvements at Sunnyside.
Right.
Yeah, if there's issues at one school or the test grades are lower, this is something that administration should be addressing to shift maybe special education personnel from one school to another and get support for that school. If there's, again, this would come to a board meeting where the board could ask for further direction as to how they could help. So if there's more personnel that could be moved to another school to help that school, uh, things like that should be done.
Steve?
So I believe this is the beauty of having multiple elementary schools in one district. If we're saying out of the 5 or 4 that Sunnyside is lower than the rest, don't we have other models to look at? Right? So we should be looking at other schools and how they're performing, looking at how Sunnyside is performing, trying to find out where that common denominator, what is going on there, talking to parents, our kids come home from school, they share information. I think acting on it, because again, I don't think it's just test scores. I think there's multiple things that play into the overall great school concept. But again, we have a model that works here. We just have to figure out why it's not working everywhere. It can be fixed.
Okay. Was that what? Was
It's
it?
Corey's turn.
Corey,
Yep.
thank you.
That was mine. Got that one first.
I'm just yelling down mine instead.
All right, so Mr. Corey, when and why did you commit to running for school board?
I've been attending board meetings for 4 years. I've been involved in the schools. I have a great relationship with the teachers. For the recent years, my wife's been involved with the Illinois PTO. As a family, we helped set up Boo Bash, was the largest fundraiser. We did all the gift baskets for that, as well as tear down. We've always been involved in the schools, going to the board meetings for the last 4 years, speaking at many of them, the concerns that I had as a community member. I just feel it's my opportunity to give back to the community with so much information that I've gathered over the last 4 years.
Steve?
Right. So the deadline to submit campaign, I guess a commitment was January 2nd, 5 p.m. I turned in my paperwork on December 12th. At that point, I was fully committed to running for this open seat. And why? Again, I believe my experience as a parent, my experience as a citizen in one of our communities, as well as my business and other board experience, just brings a background that can benefit the board and ultimately the district.
Jenny?
So as I had mentioned in my intro, I've been asked for years, to get involved in beyond the involvement that I've had in the schools. And having finished my tenure at the Chamber of Commerce last year, this was my opportunity, and did a little bit of soul searching. And I'm definitely not a politician, and this is out of my realm of expertise by all means. And so I want what's best for our community. I have proven leadership in fiscal responsibility, led a finance team for 5 years at a Fortune 100 company, where we were able to save $2 million a year just by asking questions. So it's, it's important to me, having that tax bill to myself, receiving that tax bill myself, that the referendum that we passed as a community is done fiscally responsible, and now's the time to step up.
Great.
It's me again.
It's a longer one.
The long one.
This is a long one. That's what I was like,
You might have to read it three
I may have
times.
to read it 3 times. Cool. Okay. How do you ensure the district is making the most cost-effective decisions when serving our students? The district recently added teacher coach positions to each elementary to coach teachers on their teaching strategies. But what about a position that could directly help students? Other districts have both a math and reading interventionist to help struggling students in each school. Right now, each elementary building has one learning support teacher, LST, but is one person enough for all the math and literacy needs of students?
I think I got it.
Okay.
Um, well, again, we're a multi-school district, and we may have to investigate having a pool of people that would go from school to school, because the needs, whether it's 500 students or 100 students, the needs change, right? And to have a teacher or a coach assigned to a specific school may be needed today, but maybe isn't needed tomorrow. So I think really having a plan on addressing this stuff, and establishing some type of criteria to decide where we send these coaches. To answer the question about should students have coaches, I don't know. I don't know the structure around the teacher coach, but I possibly, but I think that's something that needs to be better understood at all levels. Teacher coaches, absolutely. Again, we're putting a lot on teachers right now, and the curriculum's changing constantly, and all these different mandates coming down. So I think making sure our teachers are best equipped is the responsibility that we have.
So again, lucky enough to have a child at Glenbrook, where we participate in the Wisconsin GAP program. And I've seen firsthand how all the extra help can help these students thrive. My favorite is using the resources that we have. I was picking up at Glenbrook the other day, and there's Mr. Sufka with a non-English speaking parent, and he's got his phone, and he's talking in his phone, and he's holding it up to the moms, and he's breaking down those barriers and able to have those conversations. And I think all the additional resources we can afford, and to Steve's point, Sunnyside may need additional support. We can't just, it's not a one size fits all model for all schools on what type of levels of support that they need. But being able to identify that and make sure that they're have the appropriate things in place for all the teachers, all the kids to be successful.
Yeah, I think this is a question where we should have for our teachers if there's a need for more teacher coaches in the schools. Coming off of virtual learning, children are very behind, struggling. The behaviors in the schools is the number one concern teachers have right now. So having a coach that can help them, that can float between classrooms, is essential. And we may not need the same amount per school, but if one teacher or one school is struggling, maybe we need to have more than one coach there. But this would be great feedback to get from our teachers on their needs, if we need more coaches in our schools.
It's Jenny. It's sort of. How are you going to form relationship with teachers? Do you plan on having a presence in the school as a board member, not just as a parent?
Okay, so it's a two-part question.
Yeah, I can read it again. How are you going to form a relationship with teachers? Do you plan on having a presence in the schools as a board member, not just a parent?
So how do I plan on forming a relationship with teachers? I am who I am. I'm a mom, and I have a relationship with a lot of teachers, and it's just conversations, and being who I am. And So for that question, that's how do you form relationships? You get to know people. And for the
As a board member, not a parent.
As a
So the
board-
relationship as a board member, not a parent. Or presence, sorry, presence in the school as a board member, not a parent.
presence as a board member, um, obviously, when you take on a new opportunity, you're wearing different hats, and you know, I wear my mom heart on my sleeve, and there's definitely a difference in acting on behalf of the community. I'm no longer representing myself; I'm representing everyone that's put me there, and being that listening person and being able to have those conversations and act on behalf of everyone when I'm in the schools as my presence.
Can you read the question one more time?
Yes. How are you going to form relationship with teachers? Do you plan on having a presence in the schools as a board member, not just a parent?
Yeah, I think it's critical for a board member to be in the schools to get that firsthand experience of maybe the struggles and the great things that are happening in that school. I think currently we rely a lot on what our administration tells the board is going on in the schools. So as a board member, it's important to be active in the schools. I already got a great relationship with the children, the school teachers my children have had. And obviously as a board member, you have to be cautious of how you are in the schools, but not a distraction, but more of a gathering of information and making those connections with the teachers and support staff.
All right, Steve.
Well, I think first it needs to be understood that board members are welcome in the schools and openly welcome because they're there to learn and understand. Again, because they're tasked with our school district education just as much as the administration is. But let's assume that there is open access for board members. I think it's important to spend time in the schools with the teachers, principals. Again, I would assume that if you talk to the principal, they'd be happy to organize a session to come in and sit down with teachers and just have open dialogue with them. Um, or one-on-one. It all depends. Again, it all depends on the demeanor within the school. But in order to get that, you have to go visit the schools. So I think visiting schools and doing one-on-ones with teachers has to be one accepted, allowed, and two, it must be done.
Corey. As a board member, do you feel like the board works for the community and collaborates with admin, or do you feel as though the board works for admin and collaborates with the community?
I feel currently the board works for administration. Um, as a parent and community member that I've spoken at board meetings, I never felt like I was valued in my opinion of what I said. A lot of times, the administration is basically telling the board what they want to do, and then it's voted on. There's very little discussion that's happened in previous years. Recently, with some new board members, there's been a lot more questions asked and discussion is taking place. But currently, the board majority votes with administration's direction.
Steve?
Well, I think the governing policies lay out what the structure should be. I mean, ultimately, this seat is voted on by the public. So the board reports to the community, and ultimately, administration reports to the board. The board has the power to, say, hire and fire the superintendent. That's just a show of power. But ultimately, it has to be collaborative, right? If anything's going to happen, it can't be this switching of power back and forth. There has to be, again, everybody's personality, everybody's viewpoint could be different. How do we work through it? But the board ultimately is responsible to the citizens, the parents, the taxpayers in the community, and to the administration. And they have to be the bridge in between to get information back and forth.
Um, Agreed that as a board member, your responsibility is to the community. Um, Obviously, there's opportunities to collaborate, but a board of 7, you have to have consensus. And whether or not perceptions are there, we've got to be doing what's right for our community at all times and being that voice.
Back to you, Steve. Internal audit teams that report directly to their board play a key role in ensuring effective operations. In fact, some states require by law. What are your thoughts on PCSD benefiting from such a team?
So any organization I've worked for thus far, we had an internal audit team. internal audit is really there to keep the organization out of trouble and out of the newspaper. Do I think it's required and effective? Absolutely. Especially when we're talking about 70 million, 100 million, doesn't matter what number you're using. That's just these capital projects. What about all the operating expenses, right? Internal audit needs to be there to partner with the school district on making sure we're doing the right thing with the money of the taxpayers. It's all accounted for correctly and being spent correctly, again, to keep us out of the newspaper and again, support transparency.
Yep. Okay.
Compliance is also something that I've worked a lot with, and internal audit is obviously very important because we need to make sure as a district that we're maintaining our high standards and being compliant with state and regulatory rules and doing what's right for our community.
I think it's important that we have an audit team uh, for the community to understand where the money's being spent and find opportunities where we could save money. Large referendums, that we just passed. As a district, we can't keep coming to taxpayers for referendums every so many years. So it'd be important to have the information available, let audit go through, team look through it, and find areas we can save money, or if there's reasons that we can cut costs from the district.
Jenny, this year we were made aware of our lack of social media or code of conduct policy for outside school. Wait, sorry, let's read that again. This year we were made aware of our lack of social media or code of conduct policy for outside of school conduct. There were a couple of situations where high schoolers were exposed to things they shouldn't have been. What are your thoughts on separating personal and professional life for our staff? And would you recommend having these policies? Can we read it one more time?
Good.
Um,
I think
I think with any work, you're representing who you work for. And I think it's important that you keep your personal life and your professional life separate. That doesn't mean to say that, you can't do things in your private life, but they should be kept separate from what you're doing as your employee of the district.
Corey?
I think there should be policies in place. Everybody has a personal life and a private life, as long as they're kept separate. As a public employee, as a teacher, or somebody that works in the school district, should be even more cautious of what you put on social media or what you do in the public eye. As you're dealing with children that are in the school, and we live in a society of everybody's on social media, and one thing that gets put online gets shared rather quickly throughout the schools. So, I think there should be policies and the code of conduct should be reviewed with each employee of the district to be aware of what's expected of them.
yeah, I'm assuming, and I believe there's a policy in the school district on acceptable use of school electronic devices. So if there's certain things that aren't tolerated on school property with school devices, and I agree that this stuff needs to be kept separate. The biggest concern, of course, is they have influence on our children's lives. And again, whatever people do in their private life is their private life, but if it's going to be exposed and our children have access to it, that could be detrimental. So there definitely needs to be a policy on making that very clear what the expectations are.
Corey, can you share a time where you disagreed with, voted no to something that was recommended by an admin type group? How did you arrive on your decision?
Can you read those?
Can you share a time when you've disagreed with or voted no to something that was recommended by an admin type group? How did you arrive on your decision? So-
Referencing schools?
So I think just in your life where you voted, where you've disagreed with the direction that was given to you, and how did you arrive on your decision?
Guess I'll go back to my everyday job. I work at a plant that's union. I'm a non-union employee in the office. Um, and it's a struggle because the union employees want one thing, and as an office personnel, it's operate differently. Um,
Okay. All right, Steve.
Sure. So on one of the boards that I'm on, a vote came forward to vote on spending some money on a possible acquisition of a particular company that would maybe benefit the organization. Prior to getting to the voting stage, asked for additional information as to what the risk was of doing this and what the value was. And it's a board of 9 people in this case. And ultimately I voted no on it because there wasn't enough information to give me a good feeling. Again, this is a nonprofit organization that doesn't have a lot of money to ultimately, I'll say, waste. So I think having the data available and standing behind the data and standing behind who you are and making a decision based on your beliefs versus just following the crowd is important.
Jenny.
And again, I'm a very analytical person, and I don't make decisions based on what people tell me to do. I'm going to look at the data. I'm going to see what substantiates it, and I'm going to make a decision for the people that I represent and the best decision for me. I can't think of a specific example where um, I did that, but it's where what I concluded went against what was being recommended, but um, definitely not something that I would shy away from.
All right. Well, Steve. Data-driven decisions are important. However, do you know that the whole child and common sense are taken into consideration when making decisions for the district?
Can you say that again, please?
Data-driven decisions are important. However, how do you know that the whole child and common sense are taken into consideration when making decisions for the district?
Sure. Okay. Well, I think understanding what the data is. If you collect data and it shows a negative result, from face value, and then you have children over here that are either in conflict with that outcome, what is the data telling us, right? Being able to understand and not being afraid to ask for more information to better understand the data. But again, the children are living beings. We need to bring them and the parents and the teachers into all of our decisions and show the data, talk about the data, explain the data, and give people an opportunity to ask questions. I think sometimes we don't have enough opportunity to ask questions. So I think that's how you connect the people to the data.
And I feel like that's a 100% the board member's responsibility is they're given the data from the administration and having that responsibility to be the voice of the people and understand what they're feeling from those versus just the data and being that voice and making those rational decisions.
Here's a question right
Yeah. Data-driven decisions are important. However, how do you know that the whole child and common sense are taken into consideration when making decisions for the district?
Yeah, I mean, as a family, we sit down every night at the dinner table, and I ask my children what goes on in their classroom, things that are going on. Information like that is critical as a board member to bring to meetings and ask the tough questions to get more understanding of what's going on. I feel a lot of times we look at the data and this is the right choice to make, but we don't value our teachers or our students of if that's the right decision or not. So more information, more questions being asked before decisions are made.
Right. Jenny? In the past, Pulaski Community School District supported job sharing to help teachers achieve work-life balance. In recent years, they have done away with them because they claim that doesn't support the district work with professional learning communities. What are your thoughts about teacher job share? Are you against it? Do you feel like this doesn't fit the mold for Pulaski PCC?
I am absolutely in support of it. I think that any non-monetary benefits that teachers see. As a working mom, I get it. We we want to be and do everything that we can, and if there's an opportunity for us to fill staffing positions that are open by having somebody that wants to work a flexible schedule and we're able to accommodate that, I think it's definitely something we should be looking into to help retain some of those teachers.
Corey?
Yeah, I think it's every business right now is looking at work-life balance. This is an opportunity where a teacher wants to remain in the schools, but not on a full-time basis. That should be an opportunity they're given. I know we lost a great teacher at Illinois for this very reason. She wanted to be involved in the schools, but also wanted to be home with her children, and she ended up leaving the district completely because that wasn't given an opportunity. So by all means, it's a option that teachers should be given.
I don't know who the they is. They said it's not. And you don't have to answer that.
Yeah.
But again, job share is go back to work-life balance. It's important, right? If nothing else, it opens up more eyes as to what teachers do, attracts more people to want to do it. Again, gives us more data points into what's really going on in our schools, while giving teachers, again, a sense of power, a sense of feeling, and recognition. So absolutely, it makes sense to me.
That was to you.
I think that was
Shelley.
mine.
Yeah.
I was trying to get
Thumbs
that.
up.
Okay, so Corey, this is to you. At least two of you mentioned social safety in your write-up. What are your concerns on safety, and how would you address those concerns? School safety. School safety. At least two of you mentioned school safety in your write-up. What are your concerns on safety, and how would you address those concerns?
I mean, as a district, we just added more school resource officers into our schools. But there really has been a lot of information that's come from that the amount of involvement they have. Um, my children go to Illinois. There's a new officer in there. They don't get the same experience as they did in prior years. So I think safety is the number one concern. You know, our schools need to have all the drills. Children need to be aware of what the drills are. Our resource officers need to be involved in all aspects of the safety in our schools, and a lot of our direction for safety in our schools should come from our school resource officers.
Steve?
So safety is interesting. Um, Maybe we could talk about a bunch of different things, but if I just think about the high school, where I have two children and I hear some of the things that go on in the high school, either firsthand or secondhand, um, definitely a inconsistent approach to student behavior needs to be addressed at all schools. I think we've heard it from teachers at Sunnyside as well, that classrooms can be sometimes disruptive and they're not able to teach the children. So I think establishing consistency across student behaviors is one. I'll say destruction of school property is another, which creates a safety issue. But it's not just the students, it's the teachers as well, right? If we have students that may not be acting appropriately, how do we protect our teachers from that as well? So I think taking a look at our policies is number one, and ensuring that the board and administrative staff is on the same page with consequences for behaviors, and to make sure that it's being consistently done, and that the board is being fully informed of any behavioral issues going on in school that I would say are severe.
Jen.
Yeah, and I would say obviously I'm a mother. Safety's important. I want the best for all the kids in our schools and all the teachers. But I fully understand that there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes that we don't know about, and rightfully so. We don't want those things, safety protocol necessarily going out into the community, getting into the wrong hands. For the board meetings I've attended, safety comes up a lot, and those go into closed sessions. And I think it's appropriate that the board and the administration are on the same page, and that we have that trust in our administration that they're making those things applicable to our children and making sure that they're safe. We added the SRO officers, and I know that there's things happening as a community member. I don't necessarily know what they are, but I know that safety has been a priority for the district, and they're taking those steps to make sure that our kids are safe.
Uh, Steve, several years ago, we contracted with Neola to assist with writing policies for our district. Not only is there significant cost for this partnership, but the one size fits all approach doesn't always represent what's in the best interest for Pulaski. Have you spent any time reviewing our policies, and do you have any thoughts regarding our partnership with Neola?
I have spent some time reviewing some of our policies. Of course, not all of them. There are a lot. And I would agree that many of the policies that are out there that govern the school district, govern the board, seem somewhat generic. But I believe the board should be able to form a committee and review the policies and bring back recommended changes to make them apply to Pulaski School District. And know that this should be an ongoing thing. Every year, the policies should be reviewed. As far as continuing a relationship with Neola, if we can construct the policies in a way that they can be managed, then there's no reason to pay them to participate in something. Again, policies are something that just need to be adjusted, in my opinion, and not completely overhauled every single year or even every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. So as a board member, I mean, the expectation of the responsibility is there to be reviewing those and making sure that in questioning them if they don't fit the needs of pieces of the school district. I have not spent a lot of time going through those policies, but obviously, if elected to the board, that would be one of the things that I would do and take a deep dive into that relationship. Not understanding the relationship, I'd hate to say that I support it or don't support it, but making sure that, again, it's being fiscally responsible. And if it's from an audit perspective that we're using someone outside to make sure those policies are compliant, then I would support it. But again, I don't understand that relationship to be able to answer that.
I know over the last year, there's been a lot of discussion of Neola and the policies. So much of more changing the policies as these policies have been in place for years. They're being rewritten in a different way than it was prior. I understand if it's to fit into mandates or state level where these policies got to follow a certain structure, but there's a lot of discussion, a lot of rewriting the policies to take almost control away even from the board to be able to make involvement with the community or things that the board has control over. It seems the policies that are being done are taking control further away from the board. As far as Neola, that would be a discussion of what the cost is. Is this something that once all the policies are done, that we need to continue that relationship with them? But as a board member, that'd be something you need to look into.
All right, Jenny, how do you feel Pulaski Community School District is doing with bullying? Do you feel like it is an issue? Can you provide your thoughts on addressing this issue?
I think bullying is an issue everywhere. I think we see it in schools. I think we see it in communities. We see it. Social media has such a strong role in the bullying that we see everywhere today. So, do I think it's an issue? Absolutely. Do I understand the issue within the schools? Not entirely. There could be schools in our district that have more problems than others. And I hate to say kids are kids, but our kids, we're seeing a big shift in entitlements, and we're seeing that bullying coming back around, and we're teaching them right and wrong, and yet we're seeing it again. So really, if elected to the board, gaining the understanding of where the issues lie, and if those policies aren't out there, making sure that we're establishing those, and is it a committee that gets together to make some recommendations on how we address that in the district?
I mean, I don't know if there's strong bullying situations, but the behavior in the schools, ever since the kids came back from virtual learning, the amount of behavior teachers I've talked to is a struggle to keep the classrooms under control. Just the children are having a hard time adapting, coming back to the schools after being home for so long. Is there a bullying issue? As a board member, it'd be imperative to get that information from an administration and talk to the principals of each school to understand the bullying, if it's going on, to the level, and how to address that as a board. And that would be information to bring back to board meetings, have an agenda or have a discussion of the board of how we move forward to handle those situations.
Can I stop you for just a second?
Yeah. Everybody needs to speak up. Or is having a hard
The
time.
live stream's having a hard time hearing everyone, so I'm
Okay.
just going to encourage you guys to speak a little bit louder, okay?
I'm not yelling though.
Joe!
But voices are getting tired too.
Yeah.
So bullying, it absolutely takes place. I mean, I have I have kids in school. I've heard the stories. What I think needs to happen though is there needs to be a definition of what is bullying. And I believe the principals at each district are at each of the schools, along with all the staff, needs to adhere to the policies and not, you know, put their own interpretation on it. Because what's bullying to me may not be bullying to you. So every single thing needs to be brought up, at least at the principal level, and then even to the board until we believe that we have a handle on what's going on in our schools as far as how students are treating each other. But I also think it's important on how board members treat citizens and board members treat each other and board members treat the administrative staff and vice versa. We set the tone for everything. If we accept certain behaviors to take place, then how do we hold students accountable?
All right. All right, Corey. How do you plan to engage parents, staff, students, and the community in the decision-making process?
We had last year, I was part of the Envisioning Future Community Involvement Committee. Uh, we had great feedback, good work between business owners, teachers, and administration. I think that work needs to continue. There was great progress there the last year. Nothing's happened from that. Through that, we need to have more meetings like that where the community is able to come in, ask questions, so that the board can build that relationship. When I go to most of the board meetings, I'm there by myself. There's a few other parents that have come regularly with me. Other than that, it's the community isn't aware of these meetings. The community doesn't feel welcome. So I think being on the community, interacting with them, letting them understand where the board meetings are to get more people involved.
Again, I'm going to go back to, I think, more opportunities for the community to get involved in things like this. The problem with the board meetings and using that as an avenue, you're limited to the citizen forum 2 minutes, and maybe not everybody wants to speak, and the room's not that big. There's a bunch of reasons and excuses as to why that isn't effective. So I think, again, having an opportunity for the community to just come in and talk, it doesn't have to be to conduct business. It's really just to interact, build relationships, and build trust with each other. And again, from that action, if action needs to be taken, then we open it up to the board meeting. All the information is out on the school website. It's really easy to say, go look there. I think if we want the community to be informed, we need to start informing the community.
I think I might have lost the question a
Yeah.
little bit.
Sure. How do you plan to engage parents, staff, students, and the community in the decision-making process?
I am 100% in this community every day. Like it or not, I don't go through very much gas. And I love it. This is where I want to be, and I'm out there meeting people and I'm doing things, and I think that there's opportunities for people that want to participate in committees, and I'm very open to that when there's decisions that need to be made. Getting that input and having that transparency where people can come in and have a chat.
All right, Steve. Through an open record request, it was learned that our superintendent's contract is set up to automatically renew annually with a larger than average salary increase without any sort of link to performance metrics. Can you offer your thoughts on this?
It's disappointing. I think most employees go through a performance evaluation every single year, and I think that should be said for everybody at any level. Again, if you don't get reviewed at an annual level, whether good or bad, how do you have motivation to want to do a good job? And I'm not suggesting the superintendent's not doing a good job. I'm just saying we should have an opportunity, the board should, to evaluate the superintendent on an annual basis. And if performance warrants it, an increase can be given, but not guaranteed. Again, I would look at the rest of the staff and what their increases look like. You have to, again, make sure it's consistent and fair. And the contract should be on an annual basis. Again, it motivates for somebody to want to do a good job. There should be no auto renew on a superintendent contract.
Um, Again, having led people, I absolutely believe in paying for performance. They're tough conversations to have at times where you're doing an adequate job for what you're receiving. And I think that those performance reviews are important across all aspects of any employment.
First off, there should be an auto renew. Each year there should be a review, and I think the public should have the opportunity to see that review as far as how she's doing, and if that dictates her getting, a review or a raise on that. But yes, at the very least, there should be discussion. The board should give her goals, things that they want her to improve on for the year forward before any auto renew is set.
Okay. Jenny, explain to us a time when you've made a decision in your personal or professional life that impacted others. But looking back on it now, you wish you would have made a different decision.
No. Um, I just want to make you laugh, so I'm going to tell you I got married once. There's a personal decision I make that I no. Um, my kids have a fantastic dad. Um, honestly, I consider myself a very grounded person, and I have made decisions for large groups of people, and I honestly cannot come up with one that I regret necessarily, and wish I could do it again. Um, I was not prepared for that question. Of all the things that my mom brain puts down on paper at night, I keep a notebook by my bed, and I'm like dumping stuff out. I don't have a good answer to that.
That's all right. All right, Corey.
Can you read that question again?
Yeah. Explain to us a time when you've made a decision in your personal or professional life that impacted others, but looking back on it now, you wish you would have made a different decision.
I guess I go with my personal life. In recent years, my mom was hospitalized in Milwaukee. For 11 months, she was down there, and I was the sole person that went down pretty much every month to be with her. My dad was down there full time. Um, I took on a lot of the responsibility of paying their bills, taking care of their house, being there for them. And looking back, I should have given some of that responsibility to my brothers to take care of. But thankful I was there for my mom to the end.
Steve?
Sure. I'll use professional. Even though I'm still kind of laughing at Jenny's. Um, So I was working for the utility here. It's been what, 10 years? So 9 years ago, they announced an acquisition. Um, I was on the being bought side of the equation and ultimately offered up to give my team to the other side of the equation to get a bunch of work done. It caused a lot of extra strain on the people involved in it. And in the end, I believe I should have used resources from both sides instead of just offering up my team. And really the intent around it was being bought. If you've never been bought before, you try to showcase your skills and all that. So again, it was a good outcome in the end, but I wish I would have handled that one slightly different.
Okay. Corey, this one's going to come to you first. Over the last few years, parents have increased their involvement in school operations. What are your thoughts on this increased involvement?
I think across the board, public education, parents are more engaged in the schools. Uh, Being virtual learning, there was a lot of things that parents weren't, that became apparent to them through that time. Uh, Parents are taking the time to be in the schools, asking the questions. And I think parents value the education their kids are getting, and they're involved. They have a relationship with their teachers. So they want to be involved in the schools and they want to know what's going on. So I think the community is eager to get more information and they want to know what's going on in the schools that their children are in all day.
All right, Steve?
Yeah, I think we need our parents in the schools. Again, there's so many kids and only so many teachers. And if we really want this to be a relationship and truly understand what's going on, both good and bad, and be able to lay out a strategy for our district as a whole, we need to be open to the parents being involved. And again, giving them opportunities to do things of value instead of, just bringing them in for whatever. So I support 100%.
Will you read me that question
Yeah.
one more time? Because I heard it differently than the answers that I got.
Over the last few years, parents have increased their involvement in school operations. What are your thoughts on this increased involvement?
So I hear operations, and I think that we're bringing teachers in that are helping with things that we would have to pay people for, and I think that's fantastic. um, so as we when I hear operations, that's where I go. You know, we've got mailers that need to go out. Pace needs help with putting this stuff together that's going to go out. I think using parents and community members to do those things is fantastic, because again, then it's something that we're not paying for someone outside to do. As far as parents being involved in the classroom, I love it. You know, they want to be there and they can help and take some of that strain off those teachers. That's, you know, that's great. I've had the opportunity to go in and read books in a classroom, and it's fantastic.
Thank you. All right, Steve. More expectations and curriculum have been loaded onto teachers and students recently, with no direct benefit to either party. How will you ensure teacher prep time doesn't continue to decrease and workload continue to increase?
Well, as a board member, it would require going to the schools and really understanding the schedule that teachers are on. Um, I don't think there's really an opportunity to get a full understanding of the curriculum, but understanding what they believe or the perceived workload is to prepare for their classes and address student concerns. You know, I know in the high school they're on a mod schedule, which causes in and of itself its own issues. And then in the other schools, it's a, you know, regular block type schedule. So working with the staff to understand the schedule they're on, the curriculum they're teaching, and what they think prep time is, and then determining whether that's going to be feasible or not.
Can you read that one again?
Yes. More expectations and curriculum have been loaded onto teachers and students recently with no direct benefit to either party. How will you ensure prep time doesn't continue to decrease and workload continue to increase?
The piece of that question I don't like is the no direct benefit to either party. Because as an outsider, I don't know that I can agree with that without understanding the full picture of what that means. You know, I don't know what a normal prep schedule is for teachers. I don't know what curriculum whomever asked that question is saying has no benefit to our children. Um, I think that in general, education is beneficial to our children. So to be able to answer that, I need to become more educated on what things that are being put on the teachers that whomever that is feels aren't beneficial.
All right, can you read it one more time, please?
Yeah. More expectations and curriculum have been loaded onto teachers and students recently with no direct benefit to either party. How will you ensure teacher prep time doesn't continue to decrease and workload continue to increase?
If there's no direct benefit to either, you know, this is an opportunity where our teachers have a voice, where they could share this information openly, where people would be able to hear this. You know, if there's no direct benefit, you know, our teachers' workloads are constantly increasing. We get seesaw messages from our kids' teachers on Sunday nights. They're constantly working. So as a teacher, if they're not having enough time to do the prep work and their workload continues to increase, as a district, we need to look at the things that aren't beneficial, that aren't giving the teachers the needs and isn't meeting the students' needs. We need to evaluate what things are beneficial and what things we can do without.
Did you ask me something?
That was the first one.
Okay. My mind.
Oh man, that means it's my turn again.
Okay. Teachers and parents do not feel comfortable speaking at board meetings for many reasons. What do you plan on doing to change lack of direct board to parent/teacher communication?
One more time.
Teachers and parents do not feel comfortable speaking at board meetings for many reasons. What do you plan on doing to change lack of direct board to parent/teacher communication?
Kind of a loaded question. Again, I need to understand because I feel comfortable speaking at board meetings. So for a general question of teachers and parents don't feel comfortable, is it a minority? Is it a majority? I don't know who it is that wants to be speaking. I challenge the, well, they say, well, who's they? And, what is it that they're not getting? So obviously keeping those lines of communication open and, if those scenarios do exist, having an open door for those people to talk to me so that I can gain an understanding of why they're not feeling comfortable, to break down some of those communication gaps.
Corey.
I've spoken at many board meetings. It's very intimidating. You don't feel welcomed as a community member being there, and there's never any resolution to that. It doesn't board to come back to the next meeting and address those things, or even reach out to me outside of the business meetings to give me information that went on. So I think the first part is everybody likes to do email electronics. There should be an automatic email that goes to every board member. Every board member should be aware of what's going on. And if somebody wants to come to the board meetings and speak, they should have the opportunity. And not that anything can be acted on, but at least give them some direction as to where they could go. Maybe this situation they're speaking on could be addressed by speaking to the principal at their school, but it's very intimidating and the public doesn't feel welcome speaking at meetings from prior experience.
Steve.
I'm going to separate my answer into two parts. So, teachers versus citizens. So, teachers, I can imagine there may be a feeling of retaliation if they come to the board meeting and bring up a topic that maybe isn't well received. So there needs to be a policy written about that to protect them. Because again, it is an open forum that people have the right to speak within certain governing policies. From a citizen perspective, I mean, in the couple board meetings that I've attended, there has been an opportunity that I witnessed where the citizens weren't treated very nicely. So again, it goes back to the bullying comment I made, where we need to model the way, do the right thing, treat people the way we want to be treated, show our children how we should treat other people. But again, it can all be taken care of very easily, and that's the board following a consistent behavior, regardless of what position they serve on the board. Um, and again, in the structure of today, teachers really don't have a path to report an issue outside of their normal chain of command. So I think that needs to be investigated as well.
Okay. Corey. Let's talk about leadership. How do you know they are effectively carrying out their duties? How would you hold them accountable? Let's talk about leadership. So I'm assuming this is board leadership? Like,
I was reading it as administration.
as administration leadership? Okay. Let's talk about, so admin leadership. How do you know they are effectively carrying out their duties? How would you hold them accountable?
I guess as a board member, we could follow them on a daily basis or one day, if the board, say it's a superintendent's going to go around from each school, you could essentially like a field trip, board member follows the administration, sees what they do on a daily basis, gather information from interactions you have while you're on that at the meeting, at each school, and gather information that you could bring forward.
Okay.
So leadership is definitely not management. Um, so looking at morale, looking at budget performance, interacting with the people that report up through leadership gives you a really clear indicator on how a leader is performing. I mean, there's always a saying, people quit because of their leader. I believe that. Now, I'm not speaking of any particular case here, but I think direct interaction between administrative staff and the board members is critical to understand what's going on in their school and not being afraid to raise up concerns that could point to a leadership failure or a leadership success. Again, just like with anything, we can learn from the various staff members and board members that we have throughout the district, and we need to lean on that.
And I think for me, it goes back to the annual review of all leaders. If we're talking about building leadership, we're talking about administration. It's important that we're doing those reviews. We're holding them accountable. I was at a position a few years ago that people that reported to me and people that reported to them were allowed to submit, and I never got to see the names, but share their feedback that way. And that's part of the performance. If I'm leading people, my performance is reflected on how they feel I'm doing as well.
All right. Steve, please describe your plan to assure open record level full disclosure accounting of the referendum money to the taxpayers on a regular basis, not just by attend a meeting and read a report or minutes that say approve the expenses.
Well, on the board, there is a secretary treasurer position that is appointed, or voted on, I'm assuming. Ultimately, the secretary treasurer on the board should be working with administrative staff on getting the details behind the finances. And then as a board, it's our responsibility to come up with a format of sharing that information with the public. Again, I believe in full transparency on the referendum, on the operating expenses, all of that. And again, coming up with a plan to get the information out to the people and not just point them to a website and or hope they find it. It needs to be very direct.
And as a board representative, sharing that information, there's a board packet that goes out 5 days in advance that has all those dirty details in it that everyone doesn't get to see, and making that a usable mechanism for the people that we represent as far as being able to share that information.
Yeah, I mean, we've had referendums how many years that haven't passed. This referendum passed. I think having an open avenue such as the yearly business meeting or a budget meeting that we have something of that sorts where we can be more in detail with the information on what the budget actually is for the referendum and what we spent at each school on each project that is updated, every few months as this project goes along. So the community understands what the total cost was and what it's end up going to cost us in the end.
I was first.
Yeah, you're next.
Oh, you were looking at me like, oh.
No, you're next. All right.
No, I wasn't. I just answered that first.
I know. Here's this next one. Oh, here.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh my goodness.
He can have it. He wants it.
Okay, sorry. I'm glad you guys are keeping track. Okay, do you think Pulaski Community School District should have an open door policy, meaning teachers and staff can discuss concerns openly to any level of the district, including the board? Why or why not?
Yes, I do believe in an open door policy. However, having led people, I think that it's important as board members that you ensure that proper procedures have been followed. Who have you talked to? Who have you addressed this with? I'd love to be your sounding board, but this is what I think, that you need to follow the proper process. Everyone has a leader, and if you're not comfortable talking to that leader and you go to a board member, appropriate. But if you just think that you can bypass all your problems and get your answers by going to a board member, I think that's going to make things muddy in the water.
Can you read the question one more time?
Yeah. Do you think Pulaski Community School District should have an open door policy, meaning teachers and staff can discuss concerns openly to any level of the district, including the board? Why or why not?
I mean, I would hope our staff can go through their building principal or senior leadership with the complaints they have or issues that they're struggling with. If they don't feel comfortable at that level as a board member, I feel comfortable them coming to me with concerns that they have that I could address at a board meeting. I know a lot of our staff is very fearful of giving any type of feedback that they have for retaliation or not having their contract renewed. So if they feel comfortable coming to a board member with their concerns, by all means, I feel that's appropriate.
Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything's built on relationships. So you're going to go to the person after you've tried to handle it one way, you're going to go to the way that's least resistant to you. I think making sure, I'll use the board as an example. If a point of feedback comes to the board, there needs to be a process in place for what do they do with it. So they don't do what they want to do with it and they just do what they're supposed to do with it, and how to handle it when it involves somebody else, right? I think as leaders, we need to be equipped with dealing with all kinds of issues. And maybe we get to a point where we have a third party ethics or compliance line in the district that people can reach out to if we don't want the board to get in a position of administration versus the board. But right now, what we have is what we have, and we need to be available to the teachers, to the citizens, I mean, I would even say to students within a district.
Corey, how do you go about ensuring transparency and accountability across our district?
I mean, all information that, I understand there's certain information that you have to withhold as a district, you know, but most information should be available. Um, Not that everything should go on the internet, but everything should be accessible, easy to find. And I think as a new board member, it's important that the community is interested in this district and wants to see things move forward. So it's important to make as a board member myself available, but also work with administration to make sure that we include the community in all involvement.
Yeah. I mean, transparency starts with answering people's questions, um, even questions we don't want to answer, right? So we have to be open to that, and I think turn a question into a conversation, right? Pen opportunities may ask me a question, I ask them the same questions in return, right? That's how transparency is supported. I think we all need to be transparent. I don't think it should be something we try to do. But if I look at the information that should flow to the community, the things that I want to see as a parent and a taxpayer, um, we need more details in the finances. Yes, the board stuff comes out, but it's like 50,000 foot level. I can't really understand where the money's truly going. So I think being able to communicate effectively and the board initiate the conversation versus waiting for somebody to reach out and wonder where the money's going. Or like I said, if we found out that the referendum was going to start at X and turn to Y, we should disclose that. Otherwise, we lose trust.
Jen?
I want that question more too.
Yes, absolutely. How do you go about ensuring transparency and accountability across our district?
So from an accountability perspective, I mean, obviously we've talked about the audits, we've talked about the test scores, we've talked about the importance of people and involving the people and having those conversations, making sure that we're not just looking at test scores, that we're considering the whole district. And we're such a broad area from Maple Grove to Hobart to Green Valley. We're going to all have different needs um, and want different information. So we talk about accountability, here's what we have, and this is our results, and these are the things we've done. I think that's part of what we're missing from a transparency perspective is we don't always get these are the things that were done. And to me, that's something that's important is just don't just tell me that this is it. Well, no, how'd you get there? Like to be able to see the big picture.
All right. Steve? How often we often hear the phrase fiscal responsibility. What does this phrase mean to you?
Well, to me, it means we set a budget, we stick to the budget, and that we're able to answer for every dollar that we spend. It's not our money. Um, and and we can attach a value to that dollar. If we invest a certain amount of dollars at the high school, what are we getting for it? I know there's a lot of programs out there that we invest money in, but are we truly seeing the value? So taxpayers trust the board and trust the staff with spending their money. So I think being fiscally responsible is doing what we say we're going to do and not a thing more.
When I think of fiscal responsibility as a board member, it would be taking the time to go through and have my questions ready so that and understand the why. So we see a lot where you've got all these numbers on a spreadsheet and okay, but there's definitely times where you'll stop and you'll say, well, what about this? I had some data analysts that worked for me once, and they hated me but loved me because they would send me these 14-page spreadsheets of numbers and this and this and this, and I would spot check them, and there'd be a typo somewhere on it, and I'd be like, give me better data. And they'd be like, it was a typo, Jenny. But it is what it is. Like I've got to be able to trust your data to be able to make informed decisions, and that's what fiscal responsibility comes down to: is asking the whys on those and finding the opportunities to um, maybe reduce some of those costs.
I mean, being fiscally responsible, be able to show where the money's being spent and that it's being valued. If you run new programs and the community is not, in the staff and community doesn't see the value in them, uh, we should look at why we're continuing those programs and be forthcoming with information on where our budget is throughout the year. Not wait till the budget's approved and then at the end of the year, this is what we spend. Look throughout the year, make that available to the community on where our money's being spent. And maybe there's adjustments that can be made throughout and cost savings. If there's a program that's being run that people aren't seeing any value in, let's roll that back. Does it really need to be spending money on that?
Jenny, what preparation have you done to research prior board decisions to ensure that you don't go into this position blindly without any knowledge of the problems facing our district? What preparation have you done to research prior board decisions to ensure that you don't go into this position blindly without any knowledge of the problems facing our district?
Announcing my candidacy did not change anything that I've been doing. I've attended board meetings for the extent of when my kids have been in school, and for those board meetings that I haven't been able to attend, I've read the minutes, I've live streamed, I've watched the YouTube videos. So nothing in my process has changed as an involved parent.
Read the question one more time.
Yeah. What preparation have you done to research prior board decisions to ensure that you don't go into this position blindly without any knowledge of the problems facing our district?
By attending the board meetings for the last 4 years, any opportunity that they've given to be further involved, I've taken that chance and gone to it. As a community member coming to meetings and not feeling valued or that I want to be listened to, I'm prepared to go in, listen to the community, questions they have before the meetings, whether they reach out to me, email or phone call, bring that discussion, work with the board to get that on the agenda so we can discuss this, but have an open relationship with the public and allow discussions to take place at these meetings.
Sure. So I've attended a couple board meetings so far, really as an active observer on how the process flows. Had one-on-ones with board members, other community members to really understand a lot of the decision-making process, not necessarily the decisions that have been made, but how we got from A to B. Meeting with Allison provided some context on that as well. But really, I mean, my view of it is coming with a fresh set of eyes, right? Yes, it's important to understand what was, but really being open-minded and figuring out how to maneuver in the current circumstances that we're in.
Corey, you're up first with this one. What is your position on school vouchers?
As a community, it's, of course, we love the children to stay in our schools. If they have the choice, their family wants to put their children in a different school, this was discussed at previous board meetings. If our school district gets $12,000 from the state per school, and then if somebody goes to a different school and it's 14,000, that 12,000 comes from our school district to them, and we pay additional 2,000 out of our budget for those children to go to different schools. So, everybody has a choice where they send their children, but as a district, we should be working really hard to make our schools the number one that they come to.
Steve?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we need to make our district a place that people seek out. Last board meeting we talked about open enrollment numbers. Again, if we want to allow open enrollment, then we have to also, whether we want to or not, accept the other direction as well. But by ensuring that we have a good handle on our educational system and the status of all of our students in schools, we'll definitely hopefully turn the tide where the voucher program doesn't negatively impact us.
Jenny?
Yeah, and as a parent, I get it. We all have different beliefs and we all have different things, and I support those parents that make the choice. And I support the voucher program, both incoming and outgoing. We are a very lucrative school district, and people want to come here. And for us to not support the voucher program, we're losing those potential people that want to be here and know the quality education that we have.
Steve? As a demonstration of transparency prior to registering for an election, oops, sorry. As a demonstration of transparency prior to registering for this election, did any of you have Allison's face as a contact in your phone?
I did not.
I did, but I had worked on committees with her through the chamber.
I do not.
What are your views on and do you support the school board in the development of the procedure to assure that no child is left behind for events?
That's me.
Yeah, I just answered the no.
No. Oh, come on. I don't count that one.
I'll go first. I don't care.
No. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll read it again. What are your views on and do you support the school board in the development of a procedure to assure that no child is left behind for events?
Absolutely. I'm all about inclusivity and all is all. And I don't know why we would ever leave someone behind for an event.
Yeah, I support all children should meet all children. Everybody should have the same opportunity when they're in our schools. If they're children struggling, the opportunity is given to them to give them the same support that every other student's getting.
My short answer is yes, I support it. The detail behind it is, I guess if I just use the recent trip that the band and choir went on to California, if students didn't go, isn't it our responsibility to ask them why? Maybe there's a financial struggle at home. Maybe they don't want to talk about it. And, and maybe as part of fundraising, they couldn't participate in, or maybe they did fundraising, they don't know where the money went. So I think it's our responsibility that if a trip is organized, I mean, this is where teachers need to make a connection, right? And programs need to make a connection with students. Well, we may not know why. I think it's worth asking the question why, because in the case of that particular trip, no child should have been left behind that wanted to go. And maybe there was an opportunity for somebody to step up and assist with that overall effort.
Corey, what is the top priority in the Pulaski School District?
To ensure our teachers are valued, our teachers have the support that they need. Our children are getting the education that they deserve each day, and our schools are safe. As a parents, first thing is I want my kid to be safe from the time they get on the bus to the time they come home. And there needs to be the engagement for the community. Whereas I go back to the teacher conferences. Illinois does two styles. As a parent, I like the traditional style where I get the engagement from my teacher and my children. And
I think our number one topic should be teacher retention, teacher happiness. And we have to define what happiness is, right? Because we can't meet everybody's needs to the same level. But I mean, we as parents, we choose to live here. Teachers also choose to work here. And I mean, I was at the last board meeting and it was discussed the fact that a special ed teacher was moved from Sunnyside to another school. And now there's a shortage possibly, even though it was said that things are accounted for. But yet in the previous board meeting, we talked about the opposite. So I'm really not too sure what the position there is. We need to get a handle on our teachers. They, aside from our children, who they educate, they are our most valuable asset. And if we don't understand what position we're in right now, we're going to continue to lose teachers, and then we're in big trouble.
I'm going to take this a little more overarching that I think the school board's top priority needs to be our children. And that obviously involves quality teachers, quality curriculum. But kids always have to be our top priority when we're making informed decisions.
All right. Steve, many of our teachers do not feel safe speaking up about concerns. What will you do to give them a safe outlet?
So this goes back to kind of a previous question we answered. There's always a no retaliation policy, right? It needs to be enforced. And if we know there's a group of teachers or a teacher that's reporting things to whether it be another parent, another staff member, a board member, anybody on staff, it needs to be brought up. And then there needs to be a collective conversation about it. And if that means that we have to alter the process being used to get to the root of the problem, then we need to be open to that. This seems to be a repeat issue to me, and I think it's something that definitely should have our number two priority is focusing on why teachers don't feel like they have a voice because they should have a voice. We all should.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. And, since choosing to go down this path of running, I've spoken to multiple teachers. I don't necessarily hear that, but obviously it keeps coming up in questions. So I'm assuming that there is some of that out there. And, if elected, that's going to be one of the things that needs to be addressed. And it's opening my door to those concerns. But again, making sure that the proper line of chain of command where is it broken? And Steve said earlier, is it systemic? Is it teachers at one school that we're feeling this from, and what's the problem there?
Read the question one more time, please.
Yeah. Many of our teachers do not feel safe speaking up about concerns. What will you do to give them a safe outlet?
I think as a board, we have to come together on, is there an email address? Is there, a hotline or a way that we can have the teachers come out? I've sat down with some teachers that broke down in tears of, thank you for realizing that I'm not the problem, but I have nowhere to go. So I think we need to have a meeting with the teachers, sit down to really understand how they want this to go, where what they'd feel more comfortable. As a board, the last thing I would want to do as a member is make a decision on how we should do this without including the teachers. So, as a elected board member, we need to value the teachers and come up with a way to work with them on a way that they feel comfortable approaching the board and address these issues.
I'm a little afraid to be first on this one.
It's a long question.
It's two-sided, guys.
Well,
It's kind of pieces.
yeah, so maybe
We just want to respect anyone who's asked a question, and so I just want to. We're gonna have to get through this.
okay. Employers are finding that young adults leaving the school system are feeling entitled. The schools supporting a country club philosophy could be contributing to this. With the referendum money starting to accumulate, how will you support controls to assure the taxpayer money is not perpetuating this problem? Do you support looking at inner city schools and providing only the basic extracurricular activity facilities?
Read that again, please.
Okay. So
I have to start,
do
Corey.
you
Come on.
think if we put this in the two questions, would it be easier?
Yeah, it might. I
Might
think
be?
so. Yeah.
Okay. So employers are finding that young adults leaving the school system are feeling entitled. The school supporting a country club philosophy could be contributing to this. With the referendum money starting to accumulate, how will you support controls to assure the taxpayer money is not perpetuating this problem?
I'm going to be 100% honest and tell you I don't know what a country club philosophy is and how that's being used at our schools. Obviously, again, we're going back to the fiscal responsibility and the board having the oversight of the budget and how those dollars are spent and making sure, again, to bring back that fiscal responsibility and make sure that we're making sure the dollars are being most effectively. Do you want to ask me the second part, or we
Then
can
we'll go to-
all
yeah.
go through this first part?
What if we do?
Do the first part first. Okay, you guys all agree on that?
Read the first one.
Okay, that sounds fair. Okay, so do you want me to read it again?
Yes, please.
Okay. Employers are finding that young adults leaving the school system are feeling entitled. The school supporting a country club philosophy could be contributing to this. With the referendum money starting to accumulate, how will you support controls to assure the taxpayer money is not perpetuating this problem?
I mean, as a school system, I think we do a great job of a lot of the trades. We have a lot of trade programs in our schools. We allow our students to leave the schools to go to other trade, the NWTC that the school district pays for. So I think as a community, we have a lot of offering for students to keep them engaged heading into the workforce.
Steve?
You good? Well, I think it starts with financial results being broadly shared, the details. It'll help the taxpayers, citizens, understand where the money's going. If you look at like Field of Dreams as just one example, I can imagine that maybe where this question might be coming from. It's probably not well known that some of that debt is going to be assumed by the school district. I'm not sure the taxpayers actually had a say in that matter. Um, what I think would be interesting to share with the citizens is how much money are we spending on sports programs in this program versus our education. And by sharing that information, I think it's going to help people understand balance between education versus extracurricular activities. And I don't disagree with the beginning of the question that people do come out of the workforce feeling entitled, but that goes back to accountability and setting clear expectations for our children in the schools.
Okay. All right. Do you support, Corey, this one to you first. Okay.
Sweet.
That's why you wanted it broke down.
I was ready to answer it before, but now I get to think.
Do you support looking at inner city schools and providing only the basic extracurricular activity facilities?
I mean, as a school district, I think we offer a wide variety of opportunities for the students, both everyday school and outside the school. I think our current offering is sufficient for us, our school district.
Short answer is yes. I mean, I think the more time we spend reviewing other schools helps us one understand how we compare. And again, we want people to move here and we should be making decisions off what capabilities we can offer here. I mean, I will say the one challenge in the Pulaski School District is the amount of geography that we cover. So just because we can land something in the village of Pulaski doesn't mean that everybody's going to be able to take advantage of it. So I think getting the people involved in all of our decisions and talking through the rationale of it is going to help people be involved and feel better about what we're doing or why we're doing it, or have a voice to say no.
Do you support looking at inner city schools and providing only the basic extracurricular activity facilities?
I absolutely don't support providing only the basic extracurricular activities. I think Pulaski does a phenomenal job of offering our kids so many opportunities. And I would hate to see us go back to just the basics. Um, our kids have so many opportunities. You know, next year my kid is gonna get her CNA through school her senior year, and she's gonna have that opportunity as she heads out. Um, you know, she wants to get into radiology, and it's such a cool opportunity. And I would hate to see some of those. You know, she went to Costa Rica with the Spanish club, and if we were to cut down to the bare minimum, they wouldn't have those opportunities. And that's one of the things that I think make our school district so attractive is that we do have so many things and opportunities for our kids.
So that is all the questions I have. Did anybody have questions that they were holding on to that they want to submit? You did?
I have a question. I don't know whether it was covered before, but in the recent last year and a half, there's been talk about banning books in libraries and things like that. How do you feel about should the board have say on that, or should the teachers and the staff require what kind of books they allow in their library?
So
think
we will
that's
start with
me.
Steve. Yep.
Yeah. So if it's okay, I'll talk about curriculum as a whole, right? And books and all of that stuff. The board should most definitely have a say in the media used to educate our children, whether it be a book or an iPad or other forms where I'll say the curriculum is taking us in one direction completely. For example, the iPads. Does the board agree with our children learning strictly on iPads starting in kindergarten? Or should they be receiving books? I think that's all part of the discussions. I mean, there is administrative staff that does bring forward curriculum recommendations, and the board does have involvement in it, and they need to continue to remain involved in that. Again, bringing community involvement, specifically parents who are trying to work with their children on learning things with sometimes limited means.
I would agree that curriculum and books all fall under board responsibility. As a board member, it's your responsibility to understand the curriculum and challenges that certain people would be having, and making sure that our children are being appropriately exposed.
Yeah, I agree. curriculum and books that are in their schools. There should be the board should be seeing what's being brought to the for recommendation as opposed to it just being approved. As far as books in the library, I know it's been in the media that other school districts are having issues. If there's books that are not proper for our children to have in the schools, by all means, those books should be removed. Um, and that's to Steve's point. If the community is involved, maybe somebody's child brought that home from school. The community should be able to have that involvement that hey, these books shouldn't be allowed, and bring that direction to the administration and the board, ensure that only the proper materials are in our schools.
Are there others? Okay, so I guess we'll do the last 2 minutes of wrap up. So if you have any closing comments for the community, and then we'll go into some general meet and greet time.
Who are you starting with?
We will start with Jenny.
I just answered that.
Whatever, Steve. Gotten to know you really well in the last 2 hours. So first and foremost, I want to thank Ben and Jackie and everyone else that took the time to put this together. I appreciate the opportunity to have this avenue to get my voice heard. I know a lot of people in here. Haven't had the chance to meet you one-on-one necessarily, but I appreciate you giving up your Sunday night to be here. As I've said, I'm not a politician. I'm a mom. My hands are sweaty under the table. And here I am. And I hope that my reputation in the community speaks for itself and I can get your support on moving on to the board.
Corey.
Thank you for everybody that organized this, community members that did come out, those of you that are watching online. As a community member that graduated from this school, I want what's best for everybody whose children attend our schools, ensure our teachers are valued and get the support that they need, and to open the communication with the community and allow more information to be released to the public in a format that they feel comfortable doing. So I hope I earn your vote and thank you for your time.
All right. I will say thank you as well. It's everybody here that set this up, everybody online, and for those that asked those questions, there's some tough questions. But I want to say this. Not everything's broken, right? There's a lot of really good things going on in the school district. And it's important that we get the board structured in a way, right, to take all these concerns, address them. And so the next meeting is way different, right? So again, thank you.
So we're going to move into that the meet and greet time. So if there was something that they mentioned that you want to be able to talk to them about, please take this opportunity to do that. All of these questions they will have again. So if they want to elaborate on them or they read them again, wait a minute, I see something in here that I want to just expand on. They can definitely do that. So appreciate all of you for coming out. I think this is a great opportunity for our candidates and for the community to get to know them and just learn a little bit more. So thank you. Thank you.